It's getting recorded, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So our first problem is like keys and rooms. There are n rooms, and you are supposed to start from room 0, and each room has these distinct numbers, and each room may have keys to the access next room. So this is the each room has list of I key rooms of I, and each key will have this as an integer. And initially all the rooms are locked except the room 0, and we can walk back and forth between rooms freely, and we return true if we can go. So it's like here if we see, so initially we can go to room 0, we'll get key 1, and from here we can open 2. This one we can open from here, we'll get a key for 2, and if we get a key for 2, we can go to this index and we'll get a room for 3, and 3 we can open. So all the rooms will be opened here, right? But in this case, if you go to 0, you can open 1 as well as you can open 3, I think. And now you'll go to here, 3 is already open, 0 got opened, and 1 will be opened, like 0 1. Yeah, but you can't open 2 here, right?
Right, right.
Yeah. So 2 can't be, that's why it is false. And yeah, so that's it. Like, so how to proceed? What would be the like brute force way? And constraints? Yeah, there are no such constraints. Yeah.
So the brute force would be like, because they say you always have to start from room 0. You go to room 0, get all the keys, and then go for all the rooms which are in that, which you can open with those keys,
Okay.
and then go to the next, whatever it is, yeah, maybe traverse each and every room, find if we have keys already, something
Yeah.
like that. And then if the key is already present, means whenever you go to room 0, you find some keys, you actually remember that somewhere, written their values. And then when you go to room number 1, you see if those keys are already, you are able to get access for those keys, and then try to open those rooms, and then keep on adding new keys which you get from that room, right?
Room, yeah.
So you'll have to keep on going to each and every room and get all the keys. And you can, when you go to a room, you can find if you already have the keys present, then only you go and open the room, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. So you'll have to keep on coming back, and it might be n square,
Every time you visit entire length, I mean, maybe
Yeah.
you need good person. Yeah.
Right. So another brute force could be like, so I mean, less optimized than what Santosh explained, that we start from every room, and if we are able to come back to that room, then that means that I can open that room. And we do this for every room.
Okay.
This
Yeah.
would be n cube.
Okay. So it will be a circular. So it means that we have reached each and every room. Yeah. Okay. That is also good.
Actually, we have encountered this type of lead code hard problem earlier also, right? I mean, it was more
Okay.
complex. Like it was containing boxes for other rooms and keys. It was a bit more, what do you say, harder than this. This, I mean, pretty simple. Yeah.
I think that back forth movement makes things simpler.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah, I remember that. I think it's not very clear though, but it has one more constraint in this one, right? Other than the room keys, there is something which we need to take
There's
care.
some,
Yeah. Okay.
like inside the room also one box was there, and for that box key also was inside the room. So all those things we have to take care in that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is much more simpler compared to that.
In
Yeah.
the other one, that was the candies thing, right?
Yeah, candies, kind of. It was, yeah, exactly, candies one.
Mm-hmm.
We have to collect how many candies are present. Like it was similar to this only, right?
Yeah. The only thing I see here is basically, uh, is it not? Do we need to go to? This is a random array, right? So we can. I'm just thinking. How about we keep sort of keep track of how many rooms are open and for how many rooms we have got keys. Yeah, sorry.
I think there is only one room initially at start, right? One room will be unlocked
That's
initially.
correct. But that might give us the keys to the other rooms, and that is a list. So all we need to do is basically iterate through those keys, to use those keys to open the remaining rooms. We need not have to come back to the already visited rooms, right? In that way, we are progressing. We are not repeating.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like keeping track of,
So that means we'll have to have two sets. One is basically the set of unvisited rooms, which will be everything other than the 0, because 0 is always open for us. Then a set of keys to the rooms, available keys basically. Once we use the key, we remove from the set, and we add that room to the basically we remove that from the unvisited list, like that. So at the end of the algorithm, when we exhaust all the keys, but still there are rooms in unvisited set, that means there is failure.
Okay.
Right. So just one thing, I think we can use this entire array as an unvisited set. We don't have to maintain that unvisited thing separately.
But
No, he's saying use a set, because if the set size is not 0, it means it is false. That is what he's trying to say. Yeah.
The first thing Rajendra said, that we should maintain two things: unvisited and visited. So unvisited is this given 2D array only, right?
no, because I mean we'll have if we have if the interviewer says we can modify the input array, then it is good, because the 0 is always visitable. I mean always visited. So we'll have to
So
remove
you don't
that
need to
first.
modify. So what I'm saying is that if you reach onto some room and that room is unvisited, so you put that room in the visited set, and that is how you mark something visited, right?
I was not talking about visited set. I was talking about keeping an unvisited set, to which we started from your suggestion was, why don't we use the existing array? The only thing I'm saying is we can use it only if it is modifiable, because the 0th slot, 0th entry in here is always visited.
Right. Right. Yeah, I got your point. Yeah.
Yeah, Harshit, your approach will be slightly optimized version. He's trying to be one layer above that. Yeah, that's good.
So how in input array will you keep track? I mean, let's say if the array is modifiable, then how will you keep track that it's visited? Like in the array in place itself, rather than using explicitly the set.
I think he's just saying use a visited one. Don't
Yeah.
use a unvisited set at all.
So just like
Yeah,
normal
yeah.
DFS.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, like if we are through with the brute force part, so it's like for finding whether all of them are in a connected component or not, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now it is becoming a graph problem, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So if it is going to be a graph problem, then we have two ways to implement this one, right? Either a DFS approach or a BFS approach.
Right.
Use either of those traversal. Yeah, and then that becomes much easier if it is a
it's straightforward after that.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to share.
So what was the better way of doing it? Either a BFS or DFS?
So I tried both of them, like both of them works, but I think in general BFS is the better one, because you have this added overhead of function call stack in BFS.
Okay.
No, BFS secondly it will be bigger because width will increase always here. Like I mean, a nested list can have 10 childrens. Like I mean, when you unlock room number 0, you can have 10 keys to the 10 rooms, right?
Right.
So if you BFS, if you use, then you will be, what do you say? You can access. Yeah, DFS also it works. DFS mostly if the length is shorter, right? Then you go for DFS.
So can somebody elaborate the BFS? What I understand I can share, but I just wanted to make sure we are all in sync with respect to what BFS is going to work like.
So okay, so the BFS, I would say, okay, maybe help me, Harshit and Shashank. So actually we have room 0, okay, right? So we go to room 0 and we get all their keys. Okay, so in this example, we have in room 0, we have 1 and 3. Sorry, I'll take the second example. Okay, so in room 0, I have keys for 1 and 3. So these keys 1 and 3 will be my adjacency list, you know. So these are the neighbors for room number 0. So then I'll put first 0 in the queue, right? And when I come in the while loop, when I'm checking for the BFS approach, right? When I pop this first from the queue, okay, this is a queue. So if I push Q or 0 in this queue, and then I pop this out, okay. So when I pop this out, I have 1 and 3, correct? So I actually see if 1 and 3, I also maintain a visited array here, okay. So in this visited array, I first push 0. So I look for 1 and 3. If they are not in the visited one, then I push them in the queue, 1 here and then 3. So now I can visit 1 and 3, right? So now this is gone. So when I come in the queue, I look for 1, and then now in 1, I have 301, right? So in the 1, I have 301. So I look if 301 are already visited or not. If they are not visited, okay, so 3 is already there. So okay, so 0, I put 301 also. So 0 is also there. I don't put anything. Okay, then I go to 3, right? In 3, actually, okay, I have only 0 in this case, right? So what I'm trying to do here, when I'm going through this queue, okay, I'm going to increment a counter, okay. I increment the counter, the number of nodes I'm visiting. So in this case, I'll be visiting only 0, 1, 3. So I'll be visiting only 3 nodes, right? So whenever I come in the queue, I keep on incrementing the node. So I'll increment this count 1, 2, 3, and I check if this is equal to the number of the size of the array, right?
Yeah,
So
you
if
can
it is
simply
not,
check
then it is,
Sorry, go on.
yeah. So
Increasing
something
counter is
similar.
like, okay, sure. I was saying increasing counter is like you are adding items to the set, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So Rajendra was saying, like, unvisited set. So instead of that, I'm just trying to maintain a counter and incrementing that counter whenever I pop something out of the queue. Okay. So I have how many rooms I have visited. So if I'm not able to visit all the rooms, it means my counter will be lesser than the size of my input array.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Perfect.
instead of maintaining a count, you can simply check that if the size of my visited is equal to the size of my rooms. If that are equal, then I visited everything.
Right. That is also one way of doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that something okay, Rajendra?
Yeah. I mean, I understood that is going to be the case with BFS. Yeah, that works, right?
Yeah, it is not very efficient though, but I just thought this might be a one way of doing it. But
Yeah,
one
here
faster way of
also
doing
let
it.
us see what is our space requirement. One is the visited set, which is order of n, and the other is the queue, which is also going to be order of n.
Exactly.
So we have got 2 order of n requirements here.
Yeah.
In the other case, we had also the same requirement actually, because we started with non-visited, unvisited, which was order of n, and we were also keeping track of the available keys. So that could be also order of n. So either way, the space requirement is same, and they are linear. So BFS is basically you go and use the touch every vertex once. So runtime will be linear, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
But
same
you
goes
can
with the other one also.
I think you can avoid set by using bits like bit masking, mask it, and then whichever key you are visiting, just set that particular bit to 1. So that would avoid the set space, right?
That is I
No,
mean,
here in this case, the room length is 1000.
Yeah, then
So then the bit mask might be a tricky thing to do. Yeah,
yeah,
it is possible.
yeah, it is possible. Well, but the thing is basically implementing that in front of the interviewer will be difficult.
Yeah, housekeeping is
yeah,
too much.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so I got your point. Like instead of queue, you were using set for both, right? Visited and unvisited. Yeah. So then that makes sense. Yeah. It is almost the same what we are talking here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe slightly more efficient. Okay. Yeah. So anyone wants to share the code? Or-
So I think BFS would be a better one because in the worst case, it doesn't matter if it's BFS or DFS. But if we have a small disconnected component, say, so in that case, we would get our answer earlier because of BFS. Like in DFS, we go to the entire depth. So
Right.
that is one factor, I think.
Can somebody discuss the DFS in this case?
No, actually.
Yeah, I can. Do it.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
It is that.
Somebody sharing? Or,
I think we lost Harshit. He was sharing it, right?
oh, yeah, he told that he was sharing. Yo, he's not there?
He might join. But I think,
Yeah, I can share. I have done with DFS, BFS. both.
okay, he is back. Yeah, he is back.
It's same. I mean, almost similar only. Like BFS, what you were taking a set, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just we are checking if that particular room you have already visited. I mean, if you haven't visited, then you just add it to your set and just adjacency matrix you have corresponding to 0. You have 1 and 3, right? Room. So for every key we'll take. I mean, what you say corresponding to that particular key in the hash map. I'll visit or I'll run DFS for everything, like for 1 and 3 both. I can. I mean, I can do it diagrammatically. I can show. It's like this. Like you will have 0, 1, 3, right? Corresponding to 0, you'll have 1, 3. So we'll visit all the keys. 1 also will visit and then return back to 0. Again from 0 to 3 will come and then again return back. And then next time again we'll look for what you say. Again we'll go for whether this 301 is visited or not. We'll check and put it again in the key one.
And so at the end, when you come out from the DFS, you are actually going to look for the length of those visited one and the length.
Yeah.
Aren't we going to the 0 node again? We are not setting the beginning.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
So in this case, like we should be setting the visited in the visits that we should be adding the 0, right? In the beginning itself.
Yeah, oh yeah, because it will always open, right?
Okay.
No, I mean I haven't added initially, but 0. I don't
Yes,
think we need.
Added.
it is already there.
It's already added. Then only length will be equal, right? Otherwise.
Oh, okay. So you are adding it when you are doing the recursion. Okay, not in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Arshit,
Yeah.
we lost you. And then, yeah.
Oh, it's
0 is room is here. It is added
0 is.
in line number 8. I mean, the question is like we are length of the rooms matches, right?
Yeah, it will be added in this visited set.
This question. Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
Yeah, she's saying that we are already adding any room which we are doing
Zero
on
also.
yeah 8 line number 8, so 0 is also added. Yeah, right, thank you.
but zero number room is not visited, so we'll put it in this visited set, and then
And then do the DFS of that.
you know.
I think a better approach would be little bit efficient is that if we add visited in the beginning itself, so that will reduce recursion. So let's say you call the recursion DFS0. Before you call that, you set the visited, and likewise you move the visited inside your for loop. You don't go for the recursion if it is already visited. That we can
Oh,
reduce
you're
that loss.
Yeah.
entire thing you're telling to put it inside this, right?
Yeah, and also add visited dot add 0 in the beginning also.
But at last, how will I? Okay, yeah. Sure.
So only you make the DFS call if it is not visited. If any of the keys is not visited, then only you make the call. Okay, and that's like a little better, and that's how all the algorithms. If we approach that thing with that thinking, I think all the DFS algorithms is little easier to think. That's how I do it actually.
Yeah, sure. So, but here also, if the room is not visited, then only we are calling DFS on that, right?
No. So you're checking on room. I'm saying you check on key. If key is
Oh.
not visited, then don't make the recursion on DFS key.
Okay. So you're telling like if key not in visited, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Then you add that key to the add that key to the visited,
Yeah. And then call DFS.
and then call DFS and remove the check on the top that if room is you completely remove this. And in the beginning you add visited.add.0, like when you're calling the DFS0 call in the beginning.
They look very similar, right? Because you are doing the same thing anyway.
No, but you're not adding an extra recursion. That's the point.
Only one friend. You are saving only one friend. Correct?
Sorry?
Yeah, go ahead. No, some other sound was there.
You are saving only one stack frame.
I agree. But I'm saying this, if we think all the DFS problems in this way, I think it becomes a lot easier. That's what I've experienced. So that's like the usual template I follow all the time. And I think it makes thinking process and all the solutions looks a lot easier. And that's what I think. So, I mean, everybody has different way of thinking, but I feel if we go this way, one recursion call is also less. And in terms of thinking, it becomes a lot easier.
Yeah. Good to know that. Yeah.
Small optimization is there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So earlier I also used to get confused when to make visited, when to not mix it. But then I followed this approach in all the question of DFS, and everything just falls in place. Like if key is not valid, let's not make the recursion call. So we can now change the template as in if key is, it's not just about the visit. If key is not valid, if key is not visited, if key is something, then don't make the recursion call. And if you're making the recursion call, make sure you're adding it to a set. And likewise, we can follow the same approach with the BFS as well. When you're adding into the queue, then you make that thing visited. So kind of a similar approach, in the BFS as well. If you're adding any element to the queue, let's make that visited, and then you start your operation. So things like that. I mean, it makes writing code a little easier, and that's how I follow it. That's why I follow it.
You make sure that all the recursion calls should be valid, right? I mean, it should not go on the repeated.
I agree. And same is the case with the queue as well. In the BFS algorithm, you put anything. So as soon as you put in the BFS, I think like that. If you put anything in the queue, let's make that thing visited. Not when you poll it. When you put it, let's make that visit. Here also, before you call the DFS, let's make that thing visited.
Right. So in BFS, if you do it like if you don't put it in the visited set after just popping out, it won't work. Like there would be repetitive calls. So Rahul is exactly right in what he's saying. Like we should put it in the visited set as soon as we encounter that element.
Okay.
Actually, sorry, my name is Rajat. Yes. I think by mistake I have used different IDs. So yeah, okay. So
what's your name? You said.
My name is Rajat. Actually, yeah.
Rajat.
Yeah, sorry, I use a different ID, so that shows by Rahul's Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Okay, no problem. Yeah.
Yeah, no issues. Okay.
Yes. So this is good, Shashank.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You
we
know,
have.
when you're in interview, you don't want to think on this small things. It should be like that. Should be like there in your head. Like, how do you want to do the DFS? Like, that's the approach you follow, and it just works in all the questions. That's what I observed so far.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. That's good. Okay. So we have DFS, BFS, two approaches, right?
What about union find?
I don't know about whether I never thought about union find over here, but that's a good thing. If anyone, yeah.
Ronnie likes it.
Most of the time we see whenever you use DFS, so union find. So I don't know, like if somebody has in discussion, I also didn't see any union find. I'm just asking it.
Mm. So
But I think we can solve it with union find also, because every node will be having a similar. I mean, if every room is accessible, then it will be having a same parent, or else it will be having the different parents. So based upon that, we can return whether we is it room is all the rooms are reachable or not. I just got the thought now.
okay. So you're
No, but
saying you do a union for each and every room wherever you find a key, whenever you find a key, and then you assign that parents, right? When you're doing a union, you
Yeah.
already assign it, yeah. And at the end, if you see the count is 0 or 1, whatever it is,
Yeah.
yeah, we are done. Yeah, that is also good. Yeah, sorry, Shang, what you are saying?
somebody saying? Okay, then let's move. So shall we move to next then?
Yeah, please, yeah. I think we are already at time.
So next is like populating the next right pointer, and this is a structure node in C++, the C. So these are the fields like left, right, and the next one. And sorry, what I did. Yeah. And you have to populate each next pointer to its next right node, and if there is no next right node, the next pointer should be null. Yeah. So like for this one, you don't have any right child. So I mean on the right of it. So this is null. This will point to 3, and again this to null. 4 will connect with 5, and 5 will point to 7, and 7 to null. Yeah. And you may use only constant extra space, and recursive approach is fine. And you may assume implicit stack space it will not count as extra space for this problem. Yeah. And it is less than 6k number of nodes. So what would be the brute force way?
So why it is saying you only use constant extra space?
For pointers, I think we'll be adding pointers to this node that will have space, right? Which will point to the next node. But they have already defined this next.
Can everyone else please go on mute?
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
So for brute force, I was thinking one thing, but that violates the constant extra space requirement.
Okay, but why they are saying we use only constant extra space?
Yeah, because whatever questions we solve through recursion, we use stack. So to obtain the
But that
iterative
is
form, we have to use something.
that is an implicit, right?
Constant extra space means we cannot use BFS because that is the extra space of order of log or should I say?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that is an implicit space, no, like this one.
No, no,
Even
no.
if you
BFS, you
that,
will say if you use Q, if you
So
use Q in BFS, then that is an extra space, right?
yeah, in case of DFS, I'm saying,
Oh, in case of DSS, yeah.
because that's a recursion only, right?
yeah, DFS is good. That is what they are asking. But then in DFS, how do we do it? That is interesting.
So they are actually pointing us to do in a DFS manner, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Be-
So it can be done in BFS way. That will be a brute force approach, correct? So that is,
Yeah.
we can assume it. Okay, no problem.
If you are actually able to do it in DFS, you can actually do this in iterative way as well. So they're trying to point at that O of one solution to get you to an iterative solution without BFS.
It, okay.
Okay.
So again, you'll use some traversal, right? Using travel, even if you use, I mean, iterative, you'll use some traversal, post order or pre-order, something like that. Any of the traversals.
Yeah, you need to use traversal, but once you are able to do it in DFS, you can actually figure out an iterative approach. You can convert the DFS into, converting the DFS into iterative would not, shouldn't be that hard.
But
But
we will need some space, for
Yeah,
data iterative.
iterative purpose needs this space. Stack it will use.
no, I think Uday is saying that you can use the next pointer itself because we have an extra information in that node, right? So we can use that and next one and then do it in an iterative way. But do a DFS traversal, right, Uday? That is what you're trying to say.
Yeah. So basically, this was one of the questions asked in one of my interviews. Who asked. So interviews was, I actually told I would solve your BFS, but he was adamant on me that I should implement your DFS itself.
Sorry, could you please repeat? So you wanted to do it in BFS, breadth first search, and he wanted you to do it using depth first. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Using the recursion.
Yeah, that is the requirement here actually.
Doing in a recursion is slightly tricky. So that is one thing. So we can actually discuss that approach first, and then Uday, we can come to your iterative way, later. Is after this session. Sorry, not session, but after this approach.
But one question, Uday, is your iterative solution constant space?
Yeah. No. I implement the iterative solution, but I can show you the pointers. I also implemented with BFS itself.
So you'll at least explain on a whiteboard, right?
Sure.
Okay. So let us complete this one first, our normal recursive one or DFS recursion. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So how is that going to be? So if you want to do it a DFS way.
DFS way, if you want, then.
No, breadth is fine. We already know, right? All of them. We have discussed that. So I'm just saying, like, if you want to do it a DFS way, how are we going to do it?
So you will go first to the extreme 4, right? If you use DFS and connect that point, modify the pointer of 4. If you have to check whether the parent of 4 is having right child or not. If parent of 4 is 2 and if 2 is having the right child, then you can, let me share it.
Please, so we should start with the right child, like right bias DFS.
You want to start with?
No. I'll just jam in.
I'm just saying, like, what do you say? So we'll from DFS we'll go to the extreme 4 and we'll check the 4's parent is 2, and if it has a right child, then we'll point this to 4 to 5, right? And then we'll go back to 2 and come to 5. Now here some map will have to keep it. I mean, some what do you say, set or map you have to keep which will keep track of everybody's right child. Like whose parent is one, whether one is having the right child or not. If it is having, then we can implement this we can connect 2 to 3.
But don't you think map is extra space out of stack frame?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So why don't we see the level, right? If it is in the same level, then we know that it has the next one, like 4, 5, 7 are in the same level. So if you start with 4, you know that. So we need to find the child in the same level. And the last child will have null.
Okay.
But for finding the
I
level, I
guess
think
then it becomes BFS.
Yeah. So if you're going through level, then it will be a BFS.
or we can use a
Yeah.
unordered map, but that would be extra space to store
Yeah.
your
No,
level.
no map. That is what Raj is
Again,
saying.
it's space we are having.
Right. Okay. So one thing what we can do, instead of going through the very lowest level, first when we are at root, okay. In this case, I think we are here, right? Okay, so we are root. Okay, we just check if our right and left they are not null. Okay, if they are not null, first we assign them like this pointer. And anyway, these are always initialized to null, each and every one. So we don't bother about that. And so then we come down again for each level. Okay, and in this level, okay, we know that this is not null, both of them. So again we assign over here. Okay, now when we come to this position, we know that this guy is null over here. So we need to have some mechanism to store some pointer over here about this node, the root node, and then keep on checking, okay, if we have a next for this node. So if you have a next for this node, okay, at this level, because we are just one level down. So in this level, level number 3, we can check. Okay, so if we have any next, because we have this node, right? So we want to point this 5 to 7. So for that, we need to take this root, which is 3, 2's root of this 2 to next will be 3, and then we can check if it has a right or left child, and based on that, we assign this one over here. So we'll have to use something like a while loop or something like that, actually keep on moving, because if you go down many levels, you will have this issue, so we'll have to keep on monitoring that. So that is the only trick we need to take care of. Well, I think I'm not very clear in that, but so that is the max we can do. So whenever we are at a level, okay, if we are at level number 2, level number 3, we have information of level number 2 also, right? Because we are coming from this level. So we can always look back on the level, previous levels information and find what is the roots next. Okay, so based on that roots next, we can actually find if it has any leaves. If it doesn't have level, we can keep on. If it doesn't have any leaves, we can keep on going further to find if it is not null till we hit the null. Or else if it has, then we can see if any of them has any childs or any children. So if it has a children, so we look for the first one is the left one. If it has a left children, we actually immediately say, let's point 5 to that left children. Or if it doesn't have a left child, then we can go and look for its right. If it is a right, then immediately we point that 5 to that its right child. So like that we can do, but it's not very efficient way of doing it, but that is one way of doing.
So Santosh,
I would say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for setting the right pointer of next pointer of 5, you go to the previous level and check the children of 3. If it has a left child, then you make the next of 5 as the left, or if it is a right child, then you connect 5 and 7.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, looks good, but I think we'll have to compromise on the complexity.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we can pass left and right child into the recursion, right? So, I mean, I don't know. It was just a thought process. When you were explaining, I felt like when you're at 1, to the recursion, you pass 2 and 3, which is left and right. And when you are at 2, you actually map 2 dot next to like 3. Okay. And when you are recursing at 3, when you're recursing at 2, when you're passing to the when you're recursing to the left side, you pass like 2 comma like left comma right, and when you're recursing through the right at 2 at when you're at second number 2, you pass left as right and right as next.
Absolutely, you'll have to do that, or else you won't. Yeah. So because you are doing recursion, so you have the information of your current level and either the next level or the previous level. So you always have information of 2 levels, right?
Yeah.
So that is, we can use that information and do it.
Sandeep, how would the recursion signature look like? The function signature?
So basically, you'll have you have a current node and a left and right. I think you get a.
No, actually, you don't even need to do that. You can use the same signature what you have.
Okay.
You know, and just check whether it's children are null or not. You know, and based on that, you actually do all these pre-order processing, and then at the end, you actually just send its left and right in the recursion.
Oh, in the recursion, you're saying.
Yeah, so it will take care of it. It's too much of code, but if you actually understand that, it's exactly the way I said. Maybe I'm not very clear in what I was explaining, but if you go through the code, it is almost the same.
Yeah, even I tried to implement with the same. So you connect. So at 1, you try to connect 2 and 3, and when you are at level 2 and 3, you try to connect 4, 5, 7.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say. Level alignment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's an intuitive way you.
But what I'm not able to, sorry.
Go ahead.
What I'm not able to connect is how 5 gets the reference to 7.
Oh yeah, so because when you are okay, so when you are at 2, you know, so you know that you have information about 4 and 5, right?
Correct.
Okay, so when you are at 2, you already have established what you say this connection 2 and 3s. Okay, when you are at 1, you know that you have 2 as a left and 3 as a right. So you first establish this connection. Okay, then you come to recursively to this position of 2. Oh, sorry. Okay, so then you come to 2. Okay, so when you are recursing in 2, you come to 4 and 5. Okay, so you actually assign these 2, but when you are at a 2 node, so 2's next is going to be 3. Okay, so when you have 2's next, and when you have done this 4 and 5 linking, so you come to 3 and see if it is left is true, null or not. If it is null, just skip that. So you find that 3's right is not null. So you just connect this 5 to 7. And then when you are done with this 2, you go to 4, okay, in the recursion, and it will be a base condition. It will be null because its leaves are null, so it will come out. Same thing for 5 also. Then you come back to 2, and then you go for 3's because you are going to right of 1, right? So you go for this 3, and then you come to 7, then it is null here, and then you exit the loop.
I think what is not clear to me is 2 and 3 may not be the siblings. If we have a deep tree, 2 and 3 will not be siblings.
Correct. Yeah. So in that case, what will happen? Okay, so the tree will keep growing, you know. So the tree will keep growing. Like in this case, if you have so many of them, and this will be, so you will have many of them, but you are always visiting only 2 levels, right? So when you are visiting 2 levels, I already constructed this link. So in this level also, you have already constructed this link. So you come to level 3, and even if there are many nodes in between, okay, so you always know that there is a way from 5. If you go to next of 5, it will point to 7. So you have that hold for the level 4. Okay, so you keep on going below levels. You are always doing the previous levels linking. So you have that information. So that information actually will help you when you go down.
So we are trying to fix a particular level from a level above it, right?
Exactly, yeah. So even if the tree gets complex and the branches go away long and we have many nulls in between that, but still you have information and direct short circuiting you are doing at each and every level. So you will always have that information, and you can use that information for the next level.
So for setting the right of 3 and 7, do you come back from 1, or you like set it while you are setting for 2?
No, so you first complete left part, okay, then you go to right part, right?
Okay.
So you might have a big tree other side also when you are, it might become a big tree with many
Right.
of those parents not there and all those. Yeah, I think Uday had that code, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll just delete this. Shashank, sorry, you can use that eraser. I'm sorry.
Uday is saying, right?
Okay, sorry, I didn't know.
Okay.
Oh, is it okay, or anyone can share, right? If they have.
Yeah, can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you increase the font a bit?
Yeah,
Yeah, better.
better. Okay, sure. Yeah, so basically so this is the actual method. So if root is null or leaf, I'm directly returning, and I'm calling connect next level on root. So at every for every level, I'm trying to connect that particular level, and then going to next level. So let me tell you something. So here I will try to connect the level 1, and at level 1 I am trying to connect 2, 3, and go to when I go to 2, I connect 4, 5, 7. So for every so when I am at 2, I call for other nodes which are in that particular level as well. So that connects the same level is like a level order traversal for that particular level. Level has been connected. So I just need to check. So if root, I mean, this is a simple condition itself. If root left is not null, I am trying to check if root right is already there or not. And root plot, if left and right are there, I'm pointing left next to right. Otherwise, I'm trying to get next node from the root's next node. I mean the previous level. I mean the current level itself.
Could you let
And
me know,
that would
Yeah.
Any,
So you're connecting 2 and 3 are at same level. So when we come to 4, 5, 4, 5, 7 are at same level, right? How are you making connection that 4, 5, 7 are at same level?
Because he has the information that 2 is already
1
connected to
minute,
3.
let me see if I can draw. Yeah, 1
Yeah.
minute. Yeah, at level 1, I'm pointing 2 dots next to 3. So when I'm going to 2's level, I'm pointing 4.5 and 5 dots next to 7. When I'm at level 2, 3, I'm connecting 4, 5, 7.
Okay.
Okay, so in your code, can you actually show where actually first, when you come to level 1, node 1, where are you connecting 2 and 3?
Yeah.
Can you show that? So things will be slightly clear. So is it like on line number?
Yeah, should I continue sharing or someone?
No, actually, we were asking you actually. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so let me annotate. Yeah, suppose initially I started at level 1, then when I'm at level 1, I'm pointing 2's next to 3. That is via this 48 to 53 code. So if root left and right are there, I'm just pointing root dot left dot next is root dot right. This I think everyone is clear about, right?
Yeah, what is else part? Yeah, in that.
Yeah.
52.
Yeah. Now let's suppose we are at level 2. I mean, the current root is 2. Now I will connect 4 to 5. Where root dot right not equal to null, then I'm trying to get the rights next. So that magic is happening here. 1 minute. So basically, the above is a linked list. If you consider, when you're at level 2, this is a complete linked list itself. Unidirectional linked list. So 2's next is 3 and 3's next can be some other thing. So I'm trying to get the next via this one. So I'm trying to get the next node in that linked list, and if any of that node has a left or right, I'm returning that.
No.
So it's
Yeah.
basically like you're
Yeah.
going for the parent and parent's right side, right?
No.
Right
When I'm at
side
2,
student.
yeah. No. Yeah. It's not actually parent itself. Whenever I'm setting the children's right point, children's next pointer. Yeah. So when I'm at 2, I know the next pointer next of 2 is 3. So this will give me either, so this will go into the while loop, and since the root dot left is null, this condition won't happen, and root dot right is not null. So it will give me 7. It might happen that 3 also might not have any childs. So 3 goes into its next and try to find its left or right child.
Yeah. So that linked list will continue because the list is on the parent almost, right? If we consider that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
At every
right,
level,
right.
we are setting the children's one.
Right.
And
So the line number 52, you are going left of the root 2, line number 52. So if you don't find right, so you're going.
Yeah, I'm going to the next of that particular node. I'm trying to check if there is any left or right pointer for that.
Okay,
Yes.
so 3 doesn't have any right. 3. Okay, so on the same level as 2. Yeah.
No. It can happen that 3 also might not have any child. So I'm going to its next
Yeah.
child again.
Right.
So
right.
this is a while loop.
Correct. So on line 52, when you say, can you just go there? Yeah, line 52. So if you say get next node, and if the parameter that is passing root dot next, is passing the parent actually. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore the parent actually goes and looks for the linked list, which one has a left or right child, and then that is linking will happen using this
I
line
guess not
52.
left or right, but next pointer, right?
So yeah, in line
Suppose we are
52,
at
when
2,
you
we are
post,
looking for,
Mhm.
we are looking at root dot next. That means 3 will come.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, but when he's returning from that get next node, he will return 3's right
Yeah.
or left child, whichever
Left.
is present. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
Or null if none of them.
or null. Yeah, yeah.
Line 36.
Mm. Yeah.
So here, how 5 and 7 is getting connected?
Yeah, I think Raju had a question.
Nodes 5 and
Can you
7.
repeat it? How are 5 and 7 connected?
Yes.
So yeah, when I'm at 2 itself, I know that I'm trying to set the right pointer of the next pointer of 5. So
Okay.
I'm trying to child for the node. So here it will be 3. Here 3 doesn't have a left child, but it has a right child 7. So I get that, I return that 7 child. I get that 7 and try to point that. I try to point next of 5 to 7.
Okay.
Yeah. So on line 48 to 54, right? So if you have a left child of that root, you do that. But if you don't have that left child, you do the same thing for your right. Okay.
Yeah.
But
same
when
thing,
you when you're doing for the right, you don't have to check the line 50 what you're doing, because it doesn't have its sibling. You'll have to take a sibling of the next root. Therefore, you go directly to the get next node on line 57. Yeah. Okay.
And in the next recursion, like after setting 2, you pass to 3.
1 minute. No. Actually, I know that at level 2, these are already connected as a linked list. So I'm going as a linked list traversal itself.
Right.
Mm.
It's more like a level order.
Yeah, level order traversal itself. And after that level is completed, I just do that same get next node for that. Whatever is the first node, next node for the next level. I'm trying to do that. Connect next level. What is that next node for the for the next level?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here it will be 4. If 4 is not 5.
So can we just change the function name to get next level node? That makes it a lot easier, I think.
Okay, sure.
I mean, that's like very easy to think, get next level node, which is what we're trying to use at 3 places.
Yeah, true.
But it is not get next level node, right? In this case, because what he's trying to do is he's trying to get the next node on the same level actually, but he's trying using the information on the level previous.
It's actually, this function is actually trying to get the non-null node of the next level, not on the same level.
Right. So what
So
Santosh is
you're
saying is
talking
happening
about
in line.
no, you're talking about line 67 or some other line?
No, same line. I mean, all the function that we're using, get next node, it is basically get next level node. Get next level node, which is not null. That's what function is doing.
Yeah, you can say that because.
So you're basically, if you are at 2, you are getting 4, right? Get next node is getting 4.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, okay, that's what next level. That was confusing. Yeah,
Yeah, that's why his name is confusing. So that get next level, no null node. Let's be very specific.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
Next
What
level, no
Santosh
null
is saying
node.
is happening in line 59, I believe.
Yeah, I mean 59 is like the linked list traversal.
kind of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, cool.
Can you share this code? I mean, I just like to have a look at it again, once again, if you don't mind.
Sure, I will share it.
Can you just paste the code to touch base too?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So Uday, you also said that you have an iterative way, right, to do this?
Yeah, you can actually, do it in iterative way as well. But that also forms under the same concept, the linked list traversal and setting it for the next level.
Okay.
So I can, I can give that hint where I started with. So basically, if you are given a complete tree, how will you do it? I mean, without using BFS and any of this. If you are given a complete binary tree and you are asked to set the next pointers of it.
By indexing?
That is
Indexing as in?
that works in heap.
So because if you're saying it's a perfect tree, then my next okay, so that for that I need an array, because for the left
Yeah.
side would be at 2 into I and the right at 2 of I plus 1.
So you can use actually one of the traversals to set the, you just need to track one more pointer and you can actually, so one of the binary tree traversals can actually solve this.
Yeah, because it will use implicit stack only. If regression.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
again,
so
if someone
basically,
implementing it linearly, it will use stack, right?
Iteratively we are discussing, right?
Yeah, if we use iterative.
iteratively,
Okay.
no, iteratively also, this is the background concept is the same. So basically, you can do a pre-order traversal or something like that. So basically, whenever you are going to write, you pass that left pointer as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So do you
Yeah, so
do you do
basically,
pre-order iteratively? You mean to say? Okay.
So
yeah.
that won't
So
need any stack pre-order iteratively. It will
no,
any
it's
traversal
still
will do. It will need stack,
not.
I think.
No. Actually, if it is a complete binary tree, you don't have this. Differences. Some nodes are absent in between. So you're just tracking the previous pointer, right? The previous for the right would be left. So you all, since it's a complete binary tree, you know that left and right are always existing. So here the iterative is also a similar way. So basically, let me see if I can draw.
But it's a constraint, right? If it has to be a complete binary tree.
Yeah, so he's trying to explain like first thing.
Yeah, the logic started with this one itself. So I am having a start pointer. Oh, hard actually. And previous pointer and a current pointer. Yeah. So when you are at a particular node, so the start, previous, current are at every level as well. So when I'm at, let's give these values as well. sorry, I'm not able to draw something.
Okay, no problem. Yeah, you can just
Yeah.
explain this. Fine. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, you have 3 pointers: start, previous, and curve. So for every curve, you check for every current node, you check if there is a previous pointer or not. So if the previous pointer is there, you just point that previous dot next is equal to curve.
Okay, so in this diagram, we have drawn one root and two children, right? Left and right. So what will be current and what will be
Yeah.
previous if you are at root?
Okay. So here we are starting at the. Can someone mute? Yeah. Here the start is the root itself, and previous is null, and the current is also root. So here I just 1 minute.
Okay. So it's almost like a linked list. You're going down.
Yeah. Let me say, I mean, share that partial code if I have.
Okay, yeah. So you are trying to go at each and every level and then form a linked list and then pass that linked list to the next level, right? In the iterative way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I track start, previous, and current. So if previous is existing, I say previous dot next is equal to current.
Okay.
Yeah, and you do this while cur not equal to null.
Okay. Okay.
And if let me say one thing, if previous is not there, it means it's a start of that linker list.
Okay.
Yeah, here also you are trying to keep, the similar way where you are tracking the previous pointer and the start of that linker list. So the start of the linker list will be for the next level, will be used in the next level. If I can code, I will let you know.
Yeah. I think, yeah.
So it's like top-down fashion we are going, right?
Yeah, from root only you have to go down.
And how do you set the next of the rightmost node, like the last node in a level, as null?
As in, I didn't get you.
So I'm talking about the last node in for every level. So in this case, it's 3 and 7.
For 3 and 7, it's already null, right?
No, it's not. I think we have to do it.
No. By default, it will be null, right?
Oh, by
because they are right shelled, extreme right shelled.
I think so. Yeah, that can be. Yeah. Yeah, but then in this case, how will you set the previous? To what value will be setting? I know you are not complete about what your thoughts on that.
No. So previous will be cur.
Okay.
So for the next, this node will become the previous for the next iteration of this loop.
And so this is like generating yeah.
Yeah. So we are trying to set the next pointer for the previous one.
Okay. But you still will have to look for each and every node's leaf, if it's a leaf or not. So that might be something to look for, right? Because you have to again assign those values, right?
So when we reach the right node of a particular node, then the previous should be the left, right?
Yeah.
Let me try to keep the.
Okay, yeah. So
and also, what if there is no 7, right? In the level 3, if there is no 7, then it's just 4, 5, and 5 will point to null.
Right. Yeah. So that will be by default. Because 5 will always be, 5 next will always be null.
Null. Oh, no. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. So in that case, then you can just go for the left ones without assigning the null. And on the right hand side, when you go, take the right ones, keep assigning the null. If there is no right, then assign the null to the left one.
Yeah.
Right.
I think if we think of it as a linked list, then iterative becomes more clear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so-
Yeah.
So this would be some of that logic that if left is there,
Mhm.
I mean, this will be similar for here as well.
Right. Also correct. Maybe. Yeah. Okay.
And that start will actually be used for the starting the next level. So for the next level, you have you reset that pointer for the previous, and even the
Curve will be start. Will be start. Yeah.
Yeah, curve will be start. Yeah.
Hmm. I think it will be a very beautiful solution. Yeah.
So shouldn't
Yeah,
it be
this will-
curve right in the line 39?
39. Okay, sorry. See, this should be curve dot left, and start will be curve dot left. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you're still in the evolving phase, right? So there will be some changes for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. But overall, the idea is slightly coming up, right?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
basically, you still follow the same approach of connecting the nodes for the next level, but since you already know that next level is a linked list, you use that pointer start itself.
Mhm.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
in
if I
this
code it,
case,
I'll
you
say
are
it.
coming. Yeah. So you are actually forming a linked list at the first level, and then you are actually trying to connect the nodes at the second level. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then pass the second level in the while loop where you do that curve equal to start. Okay.
Yeah. So here, I mean, there'll be some two while loops, something like this.
Hmm.
The linked list, inner linked list traversal would be this one.
And you'll have one more about that. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, one more level, while curve not equal to null or something like this.
Yeah, you might need that. Yeah. Yeah, but frankly, it's not as easy solution to implement in 45 minutes for sure. I think the recursive DFS is also not so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't mind, Uday, where was this asked?
It was
No,
quite
actually, we are not
long back,
supposed
actually.
to, disclose any of
That
the
you
company names on this one.
Okay.
On
That
that.
you can mention.
Sorry.
Yeah. Maybe you can have a personal discussion. Yeah.
Right. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So yeah, so that's good, Uday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shashank, your code, you had that same approach, right? The DFS approach.
Yeah,
Sorry.
almost. So it's like I made a first child root. I mean, the same node, the structure of the node, whatever they have given, like this one.
Mhm.
And I'll keep on as long as my child is not null and parent is not null. So I'll check if there is anything which is having for the parent's left child if you are having. Then
Okay. Mhm.
Then what you do, then child dot next you assign parent dot left to it. I mean, pointing you are pointing child to the left, right?
Child dot next to parent dot left. Okay.
Yeah. And if it is, and then subsequently you the child will go from top to down. I mean, next node it will go child equal to child's next. But here, like, I mean, this is the case. I'll show.
So you will actually, where are you going to disconnect then? Or you don't need to disconnect?
No, this will be the case for this. I'm checking. I mean, this case, parent dot left if it is. This is the parent, right? 3. And if its left exists, and if my child is here, then I'll child's next I'll do to this, and child will go to do the next level.
Okay.
And this case exists for the first one, parent dot right. Here you are having parents right child, and your child is here. Child will connect to this, and then child will move to next here. And parent will also keep on moving, because initially 2's parent was 1. Now when you reach to 4, 4's parent will be 2 in one iteration. This is for one iteration. After that you change, every iteration you change the parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a very clean and small code also.
Yeah, it is. I saw in the discussion section.
So in the while loop, we take care one level, right? And then you recurse for the next level.
Yeah, that is what we are doing. So this is for the first level we are doing. We are checking if it is having any left child. Since here you don't have any left child for this one, right?
For the 3, okay.
Yeah. For the 3 you are not having any left child, so it will directly go to the right one. It will connect with the right.
But then why, I don't see why the child root next. Wouldn't that have to be the child root left or right child?
A child next is like,
on line 26.
Yeah, once you connected 2 to 3, you need to move to the next level, right? So you have to do child dot next and parent dot next, because one level once one level is over, you need to move your parent to the which was existing child, and which was the earlier child, you may move it to the next child.
But this have to be the first. This have to be the left most child of current level, right?
Yeah. So when he goes to that connect and he comes to that level, right? So the first thing he will check is always the parents left. That is what he's doing, right? If it is true, then only he goes in that 19 and 20. If it is not, then he goes to that right. Okay. So
and in the line number.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
And in the line number 14, you're declaring, initializing child root with a node, right? What will it have basically?
It will create a node with the same this definition.
With?
It will create the node with this definition.
Okay, now I see what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, it's what will be the value for that?
A value
for this dummy one.
It will be dummy node.
It's all null.
Yeah, it's a dummy node. Yeah.
So
we are not passing it.
Okay, value will be null, but okay, in the while loop it gets it satisfies the condition, right?
Yeah.
Even without the value, because you kept a condition there.
So when he's passing in the while loop, actually he's looking for the child roots next. So child root next will have some valid node, right?
Yeah, she's telling that value is not there. That is what she's saying. Like child is not having the value, so how it is passing?
Yeah, initially, we are initializing with a node, right? And child in the line number 15, child is having the child root, so it will be getting this node which is empty value, right?
But this is
so
reference. This is address we are checking, not the value.
Yeah.
Yeah, so address is existing, right? You have a child and you have a parent. Then we are checking whether parent left exists or not. If we are having parents left child, then child's next will be your parent left. And here we'll return, since it is a dummy node, so we'll return from next node. So initially, I think it will be a child node. It will connect to the, it will check its left, whether the parent is having left child or not. This one. And if it is having, then it will connect to this. And then further it will check, right, if it is to this. And then this will be.
Yeah, so the on line 26, the child root next is always the leftmost node of the next level.
Yeah.
It can be left or right also. If left is null.
But that could be the leftmost if we look at the if we look at on the same level, right?
Okay.
Because
Yeah.
it always points to that.
Yeah. The starting one. Yeah. Okay. Got it. Yeah.
This is a linear approach, kind of.
But this
No, this is not linear.
No,
the
This is a
signature,
DFS,
does
right?
it? Yes. Okay. So the signature, does it require to create the new tree, or just modify an existing one?
Modify existing one.
Because on the C++ side, it return a pointer, right?
Yeah. So you're returning the root there.
Yeah, but if it modify an existing one, then we don't need to return a pointer.
so I'm not modifying the existing one. I'm to the dummy node. I'm doing everything, and from there, I mean, this is the dummy node. To this, I'm doing everything.
So they are asking us to actually fill in the value for that next node in each and every node, the value of that next node, right? So you have to modify the input.
But here he is creating a child node and he is doing it in the child node. So it's taking space, right?
Yeah, but
Only small space for each level.
Yeah, one space, because he's trying to use that dummy node concept.
and that's allowed. They're saying you can use a constant space. They have said. Yeah.
Or else it won't be that clean code, if you're not using this dummy node.
It's like linked list we use there.
Yeah, similar to that, right? Yeah. But it's not very easy to understand.
Exactly.
You explained here, and everyone was asking questions, so that is.
So where are we going to the next level? Actually, I didn't get it. Child root.next or something?
Your child is equal to child.next to take you to the next level. Line number 20.
Okay. Sure. Got it.
So every time he's going to the next actually and is completing that. And when he comes back, again, he starts from the next level. So for one level, you have to complete. Therefore, you have to go to the next.
Then switch to next.
Okay.
Or any queries. So it would be linear time only. I mean, from if a tree is skewed, then order of time.
O of n, right? Yeah. I think so.
Other than that, node is taking that extent, a small space.
Correct.
So only this one is taking extra space. After that, remaining I'm traversing on this only, right? This only. This tree only we are traversing remaining.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But frankly, in an interview, I'll start with the BFS.
Yeah, that is more.
Yeah, and only thing is, I will try to explain the solution, but implementing anyway, the way Uday was explaining, or even the Uday's iterative solution or your solution, it will be slightly difficult, at least for me to come up with,
No, it's, I mean, I just saw it. That's why I'm able to. What is it?
No, that's right. But I'll try though. But it won't be a working one, I would say. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's go to the next one. Yeah.
So next is like good array. So it is like array of nums of integers is given, and you are supposed to pick any two numbers out of this array and multiply it by any number, and the result should always be 1, right? Result should always be 1. So you have to pick those two numbers, which all two numbers are there. Like 5 into A plus 7 into B should be equal to 1. So this is what you have to find. Like here they have, I mean, all three numbers are required, and they are multiplying with A, B, and C, and they are getting the result as 1. So these are those three numbers.
Yeah. So frankly, this problem statement itself is very crazy. So they are saying you take any numbers and do anything, and just find if there is 1.
1, yeah.
Okay.
So if the input already have 1, then we
Yeah,
can return true, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
think
a
makes
one.
sense. Yeah.
Exactly.
So that is one base case, something like that, you can say.
Kind of.
Yeah. Okay.
I think it's like an equation where we say that, let's say A, B, C are the numbers. So AX plus BY equal to 1, then if they are valid solutions for X and Y, and we keep on doing
Return
this
AB.
by adding Z, like more variables, because we have to take subsets.
Then you return the coefficient of X and Y as your answer.
No. If I find the solution, then I return true.
Yeah, we can go for the next variable also, right? We can pick 3 numbers also.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
You can pick any number of numbers, but the result should be 1 by multiplying with X, Y, Z, or Z, or anything. As many numbers.
Okay, so Harish, in your solution, when you say AX plus BY equals 1, so are you trying to go for, you try to pick any 2 numbers and then keep on doing it something like a recursive way for all the numbers of all the combination, like a DP way of a top-down approach, something like that?
So we have to choose a subset, right? So either I pick this or I don't pick it. So on that basis, I pick a number and I didn't solve it, just thinking that.
The computation, the result would be 1.
I was thinking the same line, like if you do AX plus BY, right, equal to 1.
Yeah.
So we need to find limits between for X and Y. So like somewhere like minus, for example, -3, between -3 and 4, you get the value 1. Nearly 1, may not be 1. And if you don't get near 1, then you move on to the next number and then try doing that calculation again. So you need to find the limits and work out.
How would you solve for AX plus BY equal 1?
Yeah.
Oh, see, A and B are the values which we have to take.
12
like,
and 5.
Yeah. So like 3 and -2, whatever those values he has taken in example 1, they are A and B's. So X and Y can be any values in the array.
So we can try all the value.
Yeah, that is what I was thinking, looking at the examples, and Harshit said, right? So maybe try for each and every value, and then keep on doing it recursively, because that will be a logical way of actually at least understanding the solution. Maybe implementing may not so be easy.
But if it falls in a loop, you never get 1 then.
Yeah, that's a good one. So either you go to that infinite int max or something like that integer value, and then you end your loop. Okay, or whenever you find a 1, you just exit the loop and say it is true.
Yeah, correct.
So your processing cost will be high, but if you use memoization, there might be some slight way of actually optimizing it.
Yeah.
what else you will think of, if some problem is given? So what I think that if you can just pick two numbers, and if it's if GCD is 1, then always we can form 1 with some sort of multi.
Yeah, that's a kind of identity here. So how
let's say if out of 4 numbers we can choose 2 numbers, and the GCD of 2 numbers is 1, then we are pretty much sure that we can make this particular equation.
Can you explain a bit more, like why it happens if the GCD of 2 numbers is 1, then whichever numbers you pick and multiply with them, the result will not. I mean,
sorry.
Like you said that let's say 2 numbers are there, A and B, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if the GCD of 2 numbers are GCD of these 2 numbers A and B is 1, then whichever number you multiply as a coefficient with A and B, the result will always be 1, right?
I mean, we can certainly find a number that will lead to that result. Let's say we pick 12 and 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Then and GCD is 1. We can always find some coefficient which will lead to 1. Let me think of that.
Yeah. So what is the proof for that? I was asking, like, I mean, on what
No,
grounds you are
that's fine. Actually, proof is not required. But even if for the 12 and 5 condition, if you can come up to that, you know, is it possible always? Yeah, what you're saying, Shashank, is right.
Yeah, I mean, they have, yeah, it's an identity, it's possible, but I just wanted, like, how,
Yeah,
like,
how it is
Some
coming?
theorem
Yeah.
also that this ax plus by, some Fermat theorem, or I'm not remembering.
Okay.
it's a Bajor's identity, something like that.
No, but I think
So can
Rajat's
we?
solution is a good one. But the only thing is if you are able to explain it well there, because they surely will ask, you know, if you find a
Exactly.
GCD, if it is 1, so how are you going to come with? Might be we'll have to come with some examples.
So we can go with the proof like ax plus by is equal to 1. That's the GCD 1. And
Mhm.
let me think of a proof. We can we prove that?
Yeah, just
Yeah,
solve that problem. You
Yeah.
know, ax plus by equal 1. Then
Yeah.
we can solve it for what would be y, right?
Right.
X and Y can be anything.
Yeah,
I
but
think
can you write down? Because you know, I think that do ax plus by equal 1.
This is X, AX.
yeah. So what Harshit was saying, which theorem, Harshit?
It's
I'm
called
not really sure, but I think there is something. I'm
Bajor.
looking for it.
Okay.
If I find something, I'll
No
just share.
problem. Sure.
Yeah.
So,
So, oh, what is that?
so actually, whenever we say the GCD of two numbers will be 1, most of them, if it is a prime number, then it is going to be 1, correct?
Yeah,
So
co-prime.
it have to be co-prime.
Co-prime, yeah, co-prime, right. So even for a couple of co-primes, if we are able to prove that the difference will be 1, you know, then we can explain. So for some examples. For 5 and 7, it is very clear. They have shown it here, right? 5 multiplied by 3. But he said for 12 and 5 also, because 12 is not a prime, but 5 is a prime. So in that case, you still can find 1. So it need not be a co-prime always, correct?
No, but they have mentioned for this identity to be
So for
true, it
example,
should be
12 into 2 and 5 into 5, that makes it 1. Both are co-prime. You know, 12 into 2 is 24, 5 into 5 is 25. Difference is 1. So we can make that. So if two numbers are co-prime and if the GCD is 1, then we are bound to find such two numbers, x and y, which will lead to this one number.
Okay.
Are they saying absolute or you have to go in order?
Sorry?
Are they saying like absolute value is 1? Like in the sense, if you do multiply 12 into 2 and like 24 minus 25 is minus 1.
Doesn't matter. We can always play around with the positive and negative. So it doesn't make sense. We can always make it 1.
Yeah, absolute value is fine. Yeah.
Yep.
So, so what Rajat is saying that if the GCD is 1, then they would satisfy this solution, right?
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So
That's
just
Yeah,
to
but
check that if the GCD is 1, we can do another thing. Like if the LCM is equal to the product,
LCM is equal to product.
because HCF into LCM is equal to A into B, like
Yeah.
the multiplication of both of them.
Okay.
So if the LCM of those any two numbers comes out to be equal to their product, then
By GCD.
that means the HCF is 1.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense.
Okay, so you're saying LCM of two numbers. Okay, if it is the product of those two numbers, right?
Like 5 and 7. So they are co-prime. Their LCM is 35.
Okay. And what about 12 and 5?
So for 12 and 5, it's 60, right? And their LCM is, what is it? 12 into 5 is 60. And
60, LCM is 60 only.
yeah, they're co-prime.
They are co-prime. Okay.
Co-prime, but co-prime for both the numbers has to be prime, no? Or SCF
No.
should be 1.
HCF should be 1.
Okay.
Okay, what is the co-prime?
If the SCF of two numbers is 1, they are said those two numbers are said to be co-prime.
The common factor is just 1.
So if
You
you
wanna-
have two prime numbers, then they are always going to be co-prime, correct? Because the common factor is always 1.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So in case of 12 and 5, if you actually break down 12 into 3 and 2, right? 3, 2, 2, 2. So it has two prime numbers, which is 2 and 3. So either of them will always be a co-prime with 5, correct?
Right.
So therefore 12 and 5 becomes co-prime with each other.
Right.
Okay. I can assume that, right? I'm just asking a question. I'm not making a
Yeah,
statement.
like 6 and 3, they are not co-prime.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
6 and 3.
LCM is
So
2.
their LCM is 6 and the product is 18.
Okay. Makes sense.
I
Okay.
think I understood why the GCD has to be 1. So basically, as someone said, so there's a theorem they are saying. So when AX plus BY equal to C, I mean here C is equal to 1.
Yeah.
Let me type it here.
You can use annotate that from Zoom and, or shall I stop sharing?
Sure, I can try to annotate.
Okay.
So if this is the equation, so they say that if the solution has to exist for this equation, I mean for the x and y to be integers, they say that x and the c has to be a multiple of the GCD of a and b. So if you say that, I mean ax and by, so if let's say there's some divisor for x and let's say k1. K1 is divisor of x and K2 is also divisor of y. So AX will always be divided by K1, right? Since you are always multiplying it by some other number.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, even for the BY, it will be divided by K2. Yeah, so if there is a common divisor, it has to divide AX plus BY, right? Suppose if the common divisor is K, it will divide AX plus BY, right?
The entire one, right?
Yeah. Here, so C has to be a multiple of GCD of K.
So
I mean, C has to be a.
Are you telling that K will divide AX alone and BY alone? Oh, anyways, if
Yeah.
even if you divide alone, there's
No, I was
also.
I was trying to give you an example. So if K1 is a divisor of A and K2 is a divisor of Y, I'm just explaining K1 will always divide AX, right?
Yeah.
Even K2 will always divide BY because K2 is already dividing B. So I'm just in the same way, if there's a common divisor for X and Y, that is K, then it has to divide AX and BY, right?
Entire sum, yeah. AX plus BY,
yeah. Yeah. So the solution will exist if C is a multiple of, C is a multiple of this GCD. Because K is dividing AX plus BY, so C also has to. Yeah. So C also has to be a multiple of K for the solution to exist.
So you're telling it is dividing, and so we'll kick this K has to go this side. I mean.
Yeah. So if you have a common divisor, which is K for AX plus BY, that is surely going to have C will always have some value which is a multiple of this common divisor. Makes sense.
Yeah. So
let's try for 3 and 6.
Yeah, try.
So for 3 and 6, the common the LCD will be 2, right?
LCM or
greatest common divisor.
LCM. Yeah, LCM will be 2.
SCF.
Not LCM. Here it's GCD here 2. No, not 2. It's 3 actually, right?
3.
Oh, yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
So you cannot have C multiple of C which will be equal to 1 in this case, right? Now the common GCD is 3.
Okay.
So you cannot make C 1 by having 3.
Yeah, C will be 3, no. C will be 1, no.
No. I'm just let me tell you the whole point. Since C is 1, so the GCD of A and B should also be 1. I mean, there are no integers that are greater than 1 and divides 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the intuition behind why the GCD of here the difference has to be 1, right? Yeah, AX plus BY has to be 1. So the divisors of the greatest common divisor of A and B should also be 1.
Yeah.
For X and Y to exist.
Yeah. Because in our case, C is 1. So if our greatest common divisor, which is K, is not 1, then it won't match, right?
Yeah.
I did. Can you come again?
So because C is 1, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No. So did you understand the point where the greatest common divisor of A and B divides C?
Yeah, that I got. Like, if there is a K is a common divisor which divides AX plus BY, then
Yeah. So let's take C as 1. So there are no numbers that are greater than 1 that divides 1, right?
yeah, maximum 1 can only divide 1.
Yeah. So the greatest common divisor also has to be 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or else if your greatest common divisor is more than 1, your value of C will be 0. So because C will be 1 divided by greatest any number GCD which is more than 1, your resultant will be 0, right? Because if it's an integer division.
So you're saying, let's say if we have set of numbers and if their GCD is equal to 1, then if we insert any new number to it, the GCD will not change, is it? It will be 1 only.
Yeah, GCD has to be 1 always. That is what the proof says, means somewhat actually it, rhymes to what he's saying. So at least we are, to some extent, we are satisfied.
Yeah.
Maybe not a very mathematical proof. We won't be able to show the whole theorem and explain it in an interview, but at least to a high level, yeah, it makes sense. And that is what I'm trying to say. So because it doesn't be very intuitive, because now we know GCD is valid, we can actually look for a GCD. But in an interview, if only they give us some weird numbers and say, okay, you make this number, it's a very weird way of representing this problem, right? So how do we come up with a solution, So we just have those pointers matched in our mind. So this is one way to say, okay, if this is the case, then we can always go and look for a GCD solution. That is what I was trying to relate.
So instead of C having a 1 value, if we have different number, so a GCD of A and B should be that equal to that number which is given.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. That should be the number.
Yeah, that's pretty much possible.
The GCD has to divide C.
Okay.
Otherwise, you won't get that equation. I mean, at least if GCD divides K, I mean, if GCD divides C, then there will be a solution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah, so that's the theorem.
Yeah, go ahead.
So that's the theorem I've shared. Extended.
Yeah, extended Euclidean theorem.
Yeah, cool. Thank you, Arshad. Yeah.
So if you look at the example number 2, I mean, what's given, like they have tried to make 3 numbers, make it 1, but we can pick 2 numbers and that itself can give us the answer. So if you just scroll down, look at example 2 given over here. Sorry, no, that's example number 2. Yeah, so it says 29, 6, 10. A combination this will make it 1. But if you look at carefully, 29 and 6 combination itself can make it 1. If you multiply 29 by 5 and 6 by 24, then the answer would be 1. If we do 29 into 5 and 6 into 24, then also it gives it 1. So we no need 3 numbers. just the two numbers, GCD is 1, we'll definitely get the solution.
Oh, good, good. I think they have on purpose they have done that.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah,
So
good
the
one.
idea is just to loop through and make a hash map. If I don't know, I mean, just two numbers, GCD is 1, I think we will have solution. Yeah.
Right, right.
If we don't find for two numbers, then we'll have to move to three numbers, right?
So if you don't find for two numbers, that's a good point actually. Hold on, let us think through it.
But if two numbers are not co-prime, then will the third be co-prime with both of them?
No, that's how it is possible. It's not possible, right?
Right.
If two numbers itself is not co-prime, then how can you third number make all the three?
Right.
No, you look for another number, right?
You'll change
But if
set of numbers then. Okay, yeah.
No, but I'm just, that's a very good point. If two numbers are not co-prime or the GCD, all the two numbers not one, can we somehow make it work?
No, I don't think we can.
Actually, the theorem is not like GCD of two numbers. It should be GCD of like any. I mean, AX plus BY plus CZ. It can continue equation to anything equal to
I think
1.
we can find, yeah,
We are simple.
GCD of all the numbers.
Yeah,
GCD of all the numbers. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
So you find if the GCD of all the number is 1,
then
actually
Yeah.
it's right. Yeah.
Right.
No,
So,
no,
but
that-
Then-
what I'm saying is that if two numbers are not co-prime,
Uh-huh.
any two numbers, then if
Then
I look
that
for
means-
triplets, then
then
I
that
will
GCD will never be 1.
be able to get a triplet of co-primes.
No. If GCD of two numbers is not 1, then definitely you can't get a true solution for this. No other number will satisfy. I mean, this one.
Right.
No, we can take, we can use, like here in this case, we can use three numbers also, right?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let's example 2 to 1. That's, if this is example 2 to 1, we can make it 1. Although 2 and 2 are like the same number and 1. 2 minus 2 plus 1, we can make it. So idea is to, if I'm not wrong, the solution can be like take two numbers. If you can find the answer 1, great. If not, then expand your
Yeah,
numbers to
exactly.
3. If you can find, great. If not, expand your numbers 4 or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So whenever you create a GCD of two numbers, you can actually use that GCD for comparing the GCD with the next number, if it's not 1.
Yes.
So you can keep going to the end. As Nandini said, you can find GCD of all the numbers. At the end, you find 1, you return. Or in the between also, if you find 1, you just return true.
And secondly, if you have a set of numbers and if we pick any two numbers from there and get the GCD as 1, then any number you take after that, it will always be 1.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so
Makes sense. Yeah, that's true.
yeah. So then we don't need to care for the extending. Like, I mean, if it is if GCD of two numbers is not 1, then no other solution will exist, I think. Yeah.
No, it could exist.
It will.
Yeah.
If the third number is
Yes.
prime,
So we can use all the numbers. That's what.
yeah. So what
discussed.
Nandini is saying is right. It can be extended. Like we can't just stop on 2 if we don't find any pair with GCD 1.
Yeah, if you don't find 1 on two numbers, then you surely have to continue. Okay, but while you're continuing in middle, if you get 1, GCD as 1 for
Then
any
you can-
number, then you exit.
No, but I found a rule like if you have a set of numbers and if you pick two numbers out of it and if the GCD is equal to 1, then even if you add extra number also, it won't affect. Like it will be
So
1.
then we are done. No, if we find two numbers, then we are done. But if we do not find any two numbers, then we were discussing like if two numbers are not co-prime, will the third one will that be co-prime? So that is possible. So if we take two numbers, three numbers like 3, 6, and 17, their HCF is 1.
No. But you could have kept 6 and 17 itself, right? I mean, 3 and 17 could have been GCD itself, right?
Right.
I mean, if two, yeah. I mean, I don't think if two numbers are not co-prime, by adding a third number, it will be it will become co-primes. I don't think so. Because you have already considered all the combinations.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's like, I mean, we are not able to connect the dots. Like, I mean,
No. So now what is the conclusion? Yeah, if you take example like a 6 and 17, okay.
Okay.
No. Let me tell you one like this. Let's take ABC are the three numbers, and if we already assumed that GCD of two numbers cannot be one, right?
GCD of two numbers cannot be one.
If we are going to three numbers only when we already didn't find where GCD of two numbers aren't one, right?
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have already found some number K1 which is dividing A and B, and some number dividing B and C.
So that is not one. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So you cannot have a number which would not divide three of them.
No, 1 minute.
Let's take an example, so things will be like, maybe take 3, 6, and 17. So in 3 and 6, if you find a GCD of them, it is 3, right? So it is not 1. So we just move to the next one using this GCD, which is 3. So we then find GCD of 3 and 17, which is 1. Then we can return 1, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the conclusion, it is that if we are not able to find a co-prime pair, then there's no point moving to a triplet or a quadruplet, because they would not be co-prime, that sequence.
Yeah, but if you have not found any co-prime now, but there might be a possibility you will find co-prime later, right?
No, that's what we're discussing now. We
No,
won't
but
be able to.
those two numbers are already present in your set. No, so those two itself is giving you the wrong answer. And on the top of that, you are adding any extra number, so it won't give you one, right? I mean, A and B already.
Can you come with an example?
So example, not like 3, 6, 17 only.
Yeah.
So in this case, our so co-prime numbers are 3 and 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
And 6 and 17, right?
6 and 17. Yeah.
We stop here. We have our answer, like.
Okay.
So if let's say it's 24. Instead of 17, it's 24.
Okay.
Oh, so you are saying 3, 6, 24.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't have any co-prime pair, right?
Right.
So if we move to three numbers at a time, then also we won't find a triplet with HCF 1.
Correct.
Because we have already compared two numbers, and when we are considering a triplet, then also we have to take care of the fact that any two numbers in the triplet are co-prime.
Right.
Then only the HCF will be 1.
So, but we still have to verify all the three in this case, correct?
But no number is co-prime.
Yeah, it's no number is co-prime.
Yeah. So their HCF will never be 1.
Yeah. So it is false, right, in this case?
Yeah, it is false.
Yeah. So if we don't find any co-prime pair, then moving on doesn't make any sense now, because we won't be able to find a co-prime pair.
Moving on in the sense we already moved to the last one.
Moving on in the sense that increasing our like first we consider pairs, then triplets, then quadruplets in that way.
Instead of that, I think we can use like 3 and 6. We'll find the GCD first, and we can make use of this GCD for the next number to find GCD of this 3 and 6 will be 3, and we'll take this 3 number and take the next number to find whether GCD is 1.
Yeah, that is to avoid doing that thing. It's better to find which all numbers are co-prime, because if you do the co-prime first only, then you don't need to. I mean, inside entire array, you first find which two numbers.
Yeah. Okay. See, but in this case, if you are going to find co-primes, you are going to traverse the array, correct?
Yeah, that is
anyway you are going to traverse the array. So instead of going and traversing the array, finding the co-primes, it might be more than O of n sometimes the solution, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So right.
Okay.
So just run through the array. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I'm just talking loud. Thinking loud. Sorry.
So that is there. We can take what Nandini is saying, that the GCD percolates. So that would be O of n, and the complexity of finding GCD.
Yeah. If we take like triplets and all, I think it will be order of n square.
me, Shashank, and Uday are saying like, if we don't find a pair, then there won't be any answer.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
that is true. But if you don't find the pair, you'll have to iterate through the array to find out if there is no pair or not, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
O of n has to be done.
Yeah, open has to be done,
That
yeah.
you can't avoid. Yeah.
Oh, no problem. So at least now I'm clear. Yeah, I was not getting what actually you guys were saying. So that
So
makes sense.
extending the from triplet to quadruplet. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Mm.
Yeah, no
If
problem.
you're
That's good. Sorry, Gilbert.
Yeah, if you're actually taking A, B, C, and A, B, C has 3 numbers, and if you extend it to 3, you will get to know that you can't have that. The GCD has to be 1 as such. So that is what is our doubt, right? So if two numbers are not co-prime, whether adding a third number makes it co-prime or not. So if you are adding equations, it will be possible to have. The equations actually tell you, if you take mathematical equations, that will tell you whether it will prove you that it can't be co-prime. Adding a third number won't be co-prime.
Okay. So there is mathematical proof for it. Okay, I was not knowing it.
No.
This is
Not
what I took.
mathematical proof. You just take that equation itself.
This is the solution which I took from discussion. See what they are first taking initially number n g and finding with all the numbers where it is 1. Like
Right.
yeah, and the moment you get this one, they are returning it as an answer.
Yeah, that's what we're saying, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a good one.
I mean, yeah. But
Yeah, so looking at the problem statement, which is very hard, and the way they have explained it, so weird, and then we see at the implementation, it's so easy, But we have to come with the GCD as a concept, to understand and implement it. That will take a long time,
So
to
yeah,
arrive at this.
that equation and then using that concept where ax plus by equal to GCD, and then this solution.
Yeah.
So
even when you go and implement this in an interview directly also, you yourself will not be very satisfied whether it's a really hard implementation or a solution for a hard problem, right?
Right. And if we come up
you'll
with
be
this,
doubtful about it, yeah.
The interviewer would feel that we have done this before.
Yeah. That is one thing again.
Both of us have limitation. Interviewer is also having limitation, and the one who is being interviewed.
Yeah.
So
in that case, we'll have to explain exactly what we were discussing over here.
Yeah.
So then arrive at a solution saying, okay, this might be a case. Then it will at least look because that's the only thing what is going to expect, right?
Yeah.
He's also not going to expect something beyond that.
Actually, instead of directly going to the solution, we can explain how we approach the solution if you know already. Like people will know that you understand the things correctly, and also you're trying out before explaining the solution. Directly before going through it. So like whatever we discussed with the Wikipedia, that link ax plus by equal to extended Euclidean algorithm. You can tell that you know about the algorithm.
Not clear. Can you be a bit more clear?
Yeah, instead of directly giving the solution to the interviewer in that case, we can explain that we already know about the extended Euclidean algorithm, but we are trying it out. Instead of directly committing that you came across the problem already. If you explain extended Euclidean algorithm that you already know, and because of that you are able to try out something, and if you can explain it later, then interviewer will understand that you are trying it out. Although you know the concept, but you are not really. Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. That makes sense. So you'll have to handle it well. Yeah. So whatever it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. It was